1 second. And I'm going to then ask my colleagues to confirm if everything is working fine in the back end as far as the
Yeah, it's connected.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
1 second.
Thank you.
And I'm going to then ask my colleagues to confirm if...
Okay, I'm going to stop that so that you don't hear that from my side. Excellent. And now the only thing that is left is to start sharing my screen and with the slides, and then we are ready to go. So,
Igor,
yeah.
can I just check with you as you, oh, Glenda's going to be facilitating, am I right? Will you be sort of taking us in, do we have to self-regulate in terms of running order, or will you say, you know, Balira is going to come in now, or Lauren's going to come in now? I just want to check that, please.
Yes, we are going to call on you, Lauren. Don't worry.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you are good. You are good until the snapshot talks or lightning talks section. Okay. Until then, you can enjoy yourself, enjoy the presentations, and just contribute in the chat window. And we are going to call on you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Excellent. So now I'm going to share the screen, and I'm not going to be able to see what's going on in the chat anymore after I do this. So please bear with me, and I'm just going to ask my colleague to please help with the other aspect. So good morning, everybody. Well, good afternoon, actually, everybody, and welcome to the OEGlobal Tour. OEGlobal Tours are basically the events that we are organizing this week to provide snapshots or insights into open education developments in different regions of the world. We have a number of different ones planned throughout the days. Yesterday, we had the Africa, the Middle East, and the Asia tour. Today, we had the Europe tour in the morning. Now we have the Africa tour in the afternoon. And tomorrow we are going to have the Latin America and the North America tour. On Friday, we are going to culminate this entire event with the Open Education Awards for Excellence, where we're going to have the big reveal of the winners. Typically what we try to do during these sessions, the way that they are structured in each region is that we do a bit of an orientation into each region. So basically we want to know what's going on from the panelists' perspective in terms of open education opportunities, challenges, or the future directions. So we are asking each panel in each region to reflect on those questions. And then we also try to share perspectives on interesting projects or initiatives in each region from the viewpoints of those who are presenting during lightning talks. And many of those are actually coming from the pool of nominees for Open Education Awards for Excellence. In this particular session here today, I think we have got certainly at least one nominated initiative for the Open Education Awards for Excellence, and that represents OER Africa here. And Monge Tlaka here is the representative of OER Africa here today. So congratulations. Welcome here, all of you. And this is Africa Day 2 tour. Okay, and I hope that you could hear all of the wonderful sounds while the cyclist was passing through the screen. Great, thank you very much. Before we get to the panel itself, just a couple of things. One, the fact that we just want to tell you a little bit about Open Education Global because, well, this session actually, first of all, today's segment of the tour, the Africa tour, is co-organized together with our colleagues who have been taking the leadership on putting the speakers list together and following up with the speakers. And that includes Glenda from the University of Cape Town, who is also the Vice President of the Board of Directors at Open Education Global, and also UNESCO Chair in Open Education and Social Justice, currently based in Bristol in the UK. It's myself. I'm a co-executive director at Open Education Global from Slovakia originally, but based in South Africa for the past 24 years. And then we also have my colleague Jan Gondol from Slovakia, who is the director of technology. And then we also have our dear colleague here, Ayla Hadov-Vlad, who is also based in South Africa, in Cape Town, who is our director of communications and who actually wears two hats. She works also for Open Education Global and also for Wiki in Africa. So she's also Wikipedian, right? That's correct way of describing. Thank you, Ayla. The OEGlobal Tours are organized by Open Education Global. We do recognize that we have some new attendees today here as well who may not be familiar with Open Education Global in a nutshell. We would like to tell you a little bit of who we are and what we do. Open Education Global, so we are an international non-profit organization dedicated to advancing open education worldwide. By open education, we mean we refer to different teaching and learning practices as they are enabled by openly licensed content, such as open educational resources. And of course, by open education, we are also referring to specific values that are embodied in those practices, whether that's openness, transparency, diversity, equity, inclusion, reciprocity, and the like. Our worldwide activities in open education are structured within the three main pillars of our strategic plan, which includes field building, knowledge exchange, and value co-creation. And one of those, within those three elements, one of the main activities that we do is basically on focusing on building and supporting regional and global communities of support and practice. And in that context, we have a number of different activities, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about any of those because we don't have that kind of time here now. But I'm also going to ask my team members to please include relevant links to our strategic plan or the relevant initiatives mentioned on this slide in the chat window for more information. One of the things that we do typically is, for example, Open Education Week, which is a global event. It takes place annually in March each year, which is a global celebration of the open education movement. The Open Education Awards for Excellence, which are coinciding obviously with this week and culminating on Friday this week, where we recognize exemplary projects, leaders, and practices, open education practices. We also support regional networks or nodes, what we call, and thematic nodes. For the regional ones, we would like to emphasize one that is, for example, based in the United States, in North America, Community College Consortium for Open Educational Resources. I think I've seen one of our colleagues here had a blicker joining in. So if you have any questions about CCC-OER, please feel free to ask her in the chat window. We also have the Open Education LATAM initiative, which is focusing on advancing open education practices in the LATAM region. Again, one of my colleagues and the co-executive director, Marcela Morales, I think is going to be joining here or maybe joining on the live stream. But if you have any questions about the LATAM initiative, feel free to ask her as well. And then we also have the Open Education Francophone, OEGlobal Francophone, which is basically focused on advancing open education within the French-speaking countries. So that's more of like a thematic node. Another example of a thematic node would be also, for example, the network of open orgs or network of open organizations that we help to coordinate on a monthly basis. And we have some representatives here today on the call who are members of that initiative, including OER Africa, represented by Monge Tlaka. And that specific network was formed in 2019 when the UNESCO OER recommendation was adopted. And essentially what we do on a monthly basis is to meet as organizations. We discuss our respective activities. We try to coordinate about specific projects or initiatives that we could work on collaboratively. That's in a nutshell. And then we also do our conference, which is typically an annual event and typically an in-person event. The next year's conference is going to take place in 2026, and we are going to talk about it a little bit later towards the end of this session. So that's a little bit about OEGlobal. But of course, all of these activities that we do, we are not doing them alone. We are doing them together with our partners and with our members and supporters and strategic partners based in over 60 different countries around the world. So we have over 400 institutional members and individual supporters. And I'm also pleased that we also have several member institutions represented here today during this specific session, including University of Cape Town, represented by Glenda, OER Africa, represented by Monge. We also have sustaining members like OIF, the Organization of the French-Speaking States, which today is also represented by Balira, and OIF as the French-speaking states organization is an intergovernmental organization, and several others. So welcome and thank you for supporting those important initiatives. Part of each of these tours is basically also a panel that provides like an introduction into each region by asking panelists to reflect on specific questions. And this specific panel that we are coming towards to now is focused on open education opportunities, challenges, and future directions in Africa. And we are now going to hand over to the session moderator, who is our dear colleague here, Glenda from the University of Cape Town, to lead the way with the panelists. And I'm going to stop sharing the session now, or the screen, or the slides, and Glenda is just going to continue with the questions.
Thank you very much, Igor, for the great introduction. So yes, I'm from the University of Cape Town in South Africa. That is my home. That was where I was born. But at the moment, I am visiting the UK and working at the University of Bristol as a research fellow. So I'm joining you, in fact, from Bristol. I have been involved in open education for quite some time, and I must say that I'm very excited about this event because it really is quite unique. I'm very pleased that we can have this conversation where we can draw threads across our work and threads across Africa. And we don't always have the space to do this. And this is a really rich space that will hopefully generate conversation and future connections so that we can join our efforts across a very big challenge that is bringing open education to Africa. So today we have 3 main questions. We don't have too much time, so we're going to get straight into it. And the way this is going to be designed is I'm going to ask one question and if each person could answer, and then we'll move on to the next question and on to the third question. I think it's quite a nice way of doing it because you can kind of respond to each other and we can look at, be able to compare the answers a little bit more clearly. Unfortunately, it looks like one of the panelists is not here. I'm sure for some or other horrible technical reason. So we have 3 panelists today. So without further ado, so I'd like to introduce the first question, which is really about how and why is open education relevant in your region? And I'd like to start with Monge Tlaka, who is from OER Africa. She's based, I think, in South Africa and has been leading the incredible work at Open Education Resources for Africa. And she's going to tell us, firstly, why is it important and relevant in your region? And I know you go over many regions, so I think your answer will be particularly interesting.
Thanks for that introduction, Glenda, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here. So I think the simple answer is that open education is more relevant than ever, but we need to be honest with ourselves about how we have approached the work that it has been done so in a not effective way. So from my perspective, I look at it in terms of not being relevant, not about relevance, but really around the implementation. We've created resources, but we've not built sustainable systems. So for example, throughout our work, having traveled to a couple of countries, supported universities in various countries and governments, in Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa. But because there are no mechanisms for sharing, you're finding that the work is quite inefficient and quite wasteful. So what we're seeing is the siloed projects causing duplication, fragmented tools and content, teachers and learners that are still facing limited access and weak support, and lack of focus leading to significant financial waste. But what we are learning, because we can reflect and look at what's not working, but how we continue to implement in an efficient way. So we regard open education only as relevant as 2 things: the systems that support it. So you have to have the infrastructure, the governance, and the collaboration. Then it's coupled with the capacity for implementing it. So you need to take along the stakeholders and the users. So you can't have a system as a silo. You can build a brilliant brilliant OER resources, perfect platforms, but without the two working together, nothing really transforms. So in our work, we are addressing this by building ecosystem frameworks for sustainability alongside continuous professional development pathways for building capacity, because one without the other simply doesn't work. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Monge. I'd now like to hand over to Balira KONFE, who is representing a francophone organization in Africa. He can explain a little bit more. He is French speaking, so thank you so much for being here and speaking English to us, because I think most of us are English and we don't have the affordance for translation. But Balira, if you could just talk about the region that you represent, why is open education relevant?
Thank you, Glenda. I represent OEF. OEF means Organization of French-Speaking States, and precisely I work in IFEF. IFEF is an Institute of Francophonie for Education and pour l'éducation et la formation. In English, this means en fait education on Tibet area. Alors, IFEF address principally 5 pillars. The first, strength teacher professional skills in IFADEM, the program IFADEM, as mentioned. The second, promote mother talk in education to improve quality of language. And the third is improving the provision of technical deviate for young people. Fourth, tackle with the gender equality. And the last, on the not the least, we sharing knowledge on innovation with KICS Innovation Africa Venture Center. Alors, to ask this question, IFEF deals principally with education on Tibet. Access to equality education remains of the main concern of our topics. Access to quality is our topics, and open education is an opportunity for us to tackle these challenges. It's aligning closely with our mission and our value of IFEF in supporting transformation of education on Tibet. Thank you very much. And I'm waiting for the second question.
Yes, that's great. Thank you very much for sharing that, Balira. There's a lot of threads happening there, and also some, I can see threads across the conversation around capacity development. Great. And then the third person who will be on the panel today is Nkem Oswigwa. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce your surname, but she is from the African Library and Information Associations and Institutions, or AFLIA, which works across Africa as well, doing very, very powerful work in open education and open access. And so, Nkem, I would like to address that first question to you. So, again, you work across regions, and a big organization, and it will be exciting to hear a little bit more about that, perhaps more in the second question. But why is open education relevant for the work that you're doing and in the region? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Glenda. Yeah, thank you, Glenda. Thank you for that. You see, when we think of open education, it's easy to think of teachers. It's easy to think of infrastructure, It's also easy to think of maybe teaching methods and so on. But as librarians and an organization that works with libraries in 34 African countries across the 5 regions of Africa, we came to realize that resources that are open must support open education, must be there to support open education. And that is the area we've been working with, and with the MBA Africa, OER Africa, who have been wonderful partners. We have been able to, grow our understanding, not just a few people, but libraries across Africa, to let them understand that, teaching, learning, even in the open environment, requires resources that can support all of that. And it is quite easy when you think of open education to think of higher education, to think of secondary education. How about the children, where the foundation really is at? And okay, they've not started school. Well, sub-Saharan Africa has the highest number of out-of-school children. So what can we do for them? How can we provide resources that are open for them to learn, at least to begin to learn how to learn? So that has been like our area of focus. That's where we are trying to define our own understanding of open education, from that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Wonderful. Sorry. Just making some notes. Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. It's wonderful to actually have, it's quite interesting to have people who are representing multiple regions in the room and across institutions. And that's really the kind of work that we want to be doing more, and not have a kind of a siloed effect where, working independently and not across. So that's kind of addressing some of these issues. So onwards and upwards, let's hope we can keep more collaboration going. I want to go back to Monge then, and talk about, maybe some specific, I know Africa has so many different projects, but perhaps you would like to talk about a specific project that's top of mind at the moment and important at the moment in OER Africa.
So can you hear me, Glenda?
Yes.
Yes. So I think one of the projects I can talk to is the continuous professional development framework. So over the years, we'll build capacity by holding just one specific workshop, or you bring people together from multiple countries to learn together, but there hasn't been kind of a sustained CPD framework. So working with the academics, firstly, we consulted with quite a number of our partner universities in looking at what are the competencies that an educator or an academic would require, and what are those capability descriptors. And the idea is then to connect those particular descriptors to actual practical resources that you can use. So if you're responsible for materials design or course design, you will then be told, in this particular area as an academic, these are the competencies, these are the descriptors that these are the areas you need to be skilled at, and then you are directed to those resources. And we curated them quite carefully so that we are not recreating another AI search or a Google search, but this is a curated list based on academics specifically in the higher education sector. So we might be continuing covering other sectors, but OER Africa specifically at the moment focuses on higher education. So once we completed the CPD framework for academics, we worked with Nkem and Liz Levy, who has been I think a great partner, collaborator, advisor, working with the Hewlett Foundation to create a similar framework for librarians, because they also, their competency with an academic and a librarian are quite different. So the AFLIA team put together the framework for librarians and finding resources. So as we develop new courses or we're working on other projects, we continue to update those two spaces. And our last section that we'll then be working on is how we empower the managers or leaders that are responsible for professional development within the institution. And as I said in answering the previous question, is that if this is not done in a systemic way and you're just focusing on let's get these resources, but you're not working with decision makers that will ensure that there's budget available to get lecturers or academics to work through that content, host meetings, design other interventions. So we want to connect everyone within the institution to work together, to share and to co-create. So it's one exciting, I think, project, but I'll speak in the lightning talk about the OEL sustainability ecosystem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, that's excellent. Okay, we'll hear some more about that later. That's great. Okay, great. Okay, over to you, Balira. A specific project. I know you have also lots of projects and that you're working on that you want to share with us now. And then, you know, a little bit about the opportunities and challenges you're experiencing.
Thank you, Glenda. And in collaboration with UNESCO, we have some projects to deal with inclusive access to education resources in low-tech environment. This project aims to make open and high-quality educational resources accessible to teachers and learners in low-tech environment without internet access burden. We have 3 pillars. First, deals with capacity building of teacher in basic of numerical skills. The second deals with implementation of a panel strategy of strength digital inclusion. And the last, promoting open educational resources to ensure teaching and learning quality. We have 3 countries in pilot, Burundi, Togo, and Chad. Specifically, teacher will receive training from IFADEM model. I don't know if you know IFADEM model, supported by online tutoring and supervising, enabled to create, adapt, and use open education resources with integrating gender equality in classroom practice. It's how we have some model in IFADEM. IFADEM means Institut francophone pour la formation à distance des maîtres in French. So, the project, after this, we can't expand this project to another country because we have 21 countries in our portfolio. So thank you very much.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, that's excellent. Thank you very much. Kim, over to you.
Thank you very much.
AFLIA project.
For AFLIA, we've kind of zoomed in on training for some time, building the capacity of African librarians to understand what is this openness all about, open education, and so on. And it's very intentional because all this while is as if, well, African librarians had never been really there in all this. And now that we've stepped in, we want to be sure that we are up on speed with what it is all about. So we've been building capacity, you know, for librarians to be able to adapt, create, you know, and advocate for open education. And we've been getting into quite a lot of partnerships, you know, with Fixture, with ND and so on, like I said. And recently now we are working with DataSite because we are exploring how can AFLIA lead a consortium for African libraries to be able to mint GOIs so that when you create this open resources, can you give them the GOI so that they'll be globally accessible to everyone? You know, because like I said, we are concentrating, so to speak, on resources because that's our area of competence. So the trainings, the partnerships, and because I also spoke about the out of school children and children that don't go to school, children that drop from school and so on. So we have a digital library. I'm going to talk about it in the lightning talk. We develop, well, we have a digital library on an open platform for supplementary reading materials for children, for early literacy, and then those that they are older a little bit and they are learning to read. So that is what we have been doing. And honestly, that library that we have online, the books are not so many in local languages, but we have been able to get libraries all over Africa to use them for story hour programs, teach children. And as at yesterday, they've been read 6,008 times, the books in that library. So that's one thing we've been doing. Yeah, thank you.
That's fantastic. I think, one of the big issues that we have in Africa is language. I mean, it's something that we think about quite a lot in the open education world in terms of translation and having access, being able to have resources but translate them into multiple languages as well. So that's also something that I think, and I know with OER Africa, they've been doing this work, and that's one thing that generative AI has the potential to actually help with is thinking about translation, especially for the children, children's books and so on. So that's got real potential. And it's very interesting that we're now getting into this kind of conversation. There's a little bit in the chat as well around, open education resource competencies. And there seems to be kind of a real overlap between, doing the capacity development work that Monge was talking about, but then, also thinking about how we can share those resources even more. And then there's Abdallah, who's talking about another, let me just check here what it says, from another digital library from Sudan. So there's some nice connections there around thinking about how these competency frameworks can overlap, so that there isn't that case of reinventing the wheel, but just sharing these ideas. So hopefully from today that there will be some useful connections. I think it's already happening in the chat. Any other comments? Igor, were there any other comments that came from any other questions or comments?
I think you have captured it very well, Glenda. Thank you. But maybe just because we also have one panelist less, I was wondering whether any other speaker here or attendee in this session, like Salha Abdo, for example. Salha, you always really interesting insights on open education related topics. And Salha, I think if I remember correctly, you are from the Open University of Sudan. So if you'd like to share any perspectives on open education related developments in your country or in in that region specifically, feel free to unmute yourself maybe and just say a few words. And so that's an invitation maybe, or just articulate some of your thoughts in the chat window, not to put anybody on the spot. Maybe even Stanislaw, who is going to be part of the lightning talks, but who is based in Kenya, and who is advancing openness through their channels, also library channels. There's Lauren Fogg. Lauren, please go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So I just want, in another lifetime, I had another job where I was coordinating a number of academic institutions, and I want to raise open access resources as both an equity and a gender issue. So I think that so in relation to the gendered issue, I mean, I remember many women students were saying that, they needed access to reading resources, but they couldn't because they had to go to the libraries and then photocopy, and then there's IP issues. But also it would mean them having to, when they studied in the evenings, there was a whole safety issue for them. And so, so one of the outcomes of that particular project was, how is it that if resources were more open, that then actually it becomes an enabling issue for safety for women, and then on the equity issues, I mean, I think that's a no-brainer, in terms of, when you make especially learning resources accessible for the most disadvantaged, for the poorest people, for workers, for unemployed people, all of those communities that don't have the resources to actually engage in formal study, that then they have access to be able to self-study And I think that was, you know, a learning that we could have taken from COVID. You know, when everything was online, there were all these beautiful webinars that you could access outside even your own sector. You know, suddenly museums were open, libraries were open, and I'm thinking, well, now that all of that is shut down, and why is that the case? And I think that, and I'm not sure, maybe I'm speaking outside of your brief, so please correct me, but I kind of, for me, that definition of open access should be as wide as that, so that anybody who has access, and not just those who are advantaged and privileged. Thanks, Igor and Glenda.
Thank you, Lauren, for that very thoughtful response, and absolutely correct. And that, you know, that the principle, the values behind open education point to giving access to everyone. It doesn't have to be somebody who's already in a university or in a higher education institute or in a school. It can be communities and people trying to study part-time. And the idea is to make that access as wide as possible. Of course, the challenge with that is is raising awareness, is having people be aware that there are these open resources that they can use. That's our big challenge, especially in you know, everywhere. But we know in Africa there's not enough awareness around the possibilities of being able to access these materials. So it's one of our big challenges. Agava, if you have your hand up.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Hello, Glenda. How are you doing? I think I'll speak from the point of Nkem and
maybe just say who you are, just super briefly. Just one.
My name is,
I know you're speaking later.
Okay, yeah. My name is Stanislaus Agava. I'm a librarian by profession. I work for National Intelligence and University, whereby I'm working as a university librarian. But also I double up as the National Secretary for the Kenya Library Services Consortium, which I will anchor later on. I will anchor my whatever I'll be talking about as far as OE open education is concerned. Now, from a librarian point of view, I definitely echo what Nkem's indicated, that we as librarians, we are at the doorstep of access to information and the resources, and we know the disparity that exists locally, and as far as access to what researchers are looking for or what students are looking for. And therefore, the whole idea of open education, of open resources, comes in as a blessing, considering that these resources at this end of the globe, the southern end of the globe, are very, very expensive, and therefore they continue to widen the disparity that already exists economically as far as this is concerned. And therefore, the availability of open resources tries to bridge that particular gap. And we know where it pays more when it comes to these resources. I'll be speaking more as far as the decolonization of knowledge is concerned, and where this comes from, and you'll realize that really, unless we have more of these kinds of movements that tend to help us bridge that particular gap, the West and the South, the North and the South, will continue widening in all manner of aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stanislaus. We'll look forward to hearing more about your specific work that you're doing, exciting Kenya Hub, a little bit later. So now I'd like to kind of go to the future and hear from the panelists a little bit about what does the future look like, and it can be in your region, but you know, I think we're thinking really about the future of open education in Africa. So you can talk about your region, or open it up and just think about what you're imagining the future of open education to be in Africa. And we'll go in the same order. Monge, you've got first up.
Thank you. So maybe just before I get to the future, I just wanted to echo rather what Lauren was saying about the like platforms and resources that were available during COVID, and now they're no longer accessible. It talks to the point I mentioned in answering the first question around sustainability. When you're developing resources or you're setting up a platform or a stopgap, solution, because you're not thinking 10 years from now, 5 years from now, then once you think you have addressed the problem, then things go back. It's not actually even worse because you've provided people with these resources, and now, resources are no longer, available. So I think from my side, just in terms of the vision, so what I would like to see, and I stress in opportunities that I get to speak about, or we are engaging with ministries, is about systemic transformation, that we need to be investing in integrated ecosystems, connecting systems and connecting people right from the start. So let's not do this as an afterthought, but it's just setting up systems in place, not working, and funding projects in isolation, but building the infrastructure, working with all the stakeholders to ensure sustainability, so that if there is another COVID, now we have AI, we need to grapple with policy issues around AI. We need to grapple with the, when you're acknowledging content that you've got from an AI tool, how do you get to that? But if you've set up a base that is resilient, a base that is sustainable, you are able to adapt, you are able to adjust and be agile in responding to the needs, in responding to the new technologies. And the work that I'll speak about with the sustainable ecosystem is trying to set up a framework that we've, over the last 20 years, we have been building knowledge around this. We've drawn from various projects and experiences, but hopefully is to provide ministries, is to provide institutions with the tools that they need to create this sustainable ecosystem. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Monge. That's great. Balira. Closing remarks, our last few minutes of the panel. The future of open education in your region.
Okay, we are all agree that open education is a solution to bridge digital dividends, empower teachers, and give every child, regardless of where they live, the opportunity to learn and success. But for the African countries, particularly French African countries, we have a big challenge, is the content of education resources. The content is most of the content is in English, and they talk in French. How to tackle this challenge is our future for IFF. Thank you very much.
Great. Great, that's great, Balira. I think there is increasing expertise around translation, and it's definitely a conversation to keep in mind and to keep moving forward with. And even the work of OEGlobal recently has been amazing in terms of translating pages and work, and we can hopefully work towards that idea of translating as many resources into multiple languages. Right, and last but not least, Kim, what from AFLIA, from the libraries in Africa.
Yeah, we are looking again much at languages. You see, when it comes to a place like Nigeria, Ghana, and so many other African countries, we are all multilingual countries, and you find like in Nigeria, we have more than 500 mother tongues, local languages. In Ghana, I think we have 11 that are recognized and so on. And now, interestingly, these countries all have the national policy on education that says, hey, when a child is between, let's say, from basic 1 to 3, teach that child in the local language. It sounds good, right? Now, when you want to implement it, how can you do it? How do you think you can do it without open education? That's what we've been trying to, that's where we want to zoom in. We have started, but we want to convince our government, the policymakers, that these your ideas, they are beautiful, they are great, but can we make it practical? Can we zoom in on open educational resources for these children? Okay, since you're talking of like in Nigeria, 500 languages. Can't you see what open licensing can do? You can just take one book, translate it into different languages, and all the children will read the same text. That it works that way, that publishing does not all have to be about making money. So that's where we are zooming in on. We have to continue to build the capacity of librarians. Like my colleague said now, be sure that we close those gaps, so that we'll know that, hey, it is the duty of you as a library professional to provide resources that are accessible, that can be reused, that are adaptable, that you can use them in this level, for this level of education or the other level, and then talk and convince people who can do this and move on with it. Because it's quite easy to have beautiful ideas, like I said, but to step it down, practicalize it. And we feel that libraries are good places to do that. So that is what we are also zooming in on. Thank you very much.
That's excellent. Thank you. The doorstep to knowledge, the library. That was a great phrase earlier. Thank you very much. I think there's so many threads that have come through, and I really hope that we can keep this conversation going. I think it's something that I think we meet as communities, but we don't always meet together. And, you might meet as AFLIA, but not everybody's, it's not specifically for everyone. So these kinds of get-togethers are really, really useful. And I hope in the future that we can do more of these. And it's certainly something that I'd be interested in doing another Africa event next year. So we can definitely think about that. And also in my own personal capacity, don't worry, Igor, I'm not signing you up for something else. But I think it's really important that we work together. I think that strength is in collaboration. Thank you so much for all your contributions, and thank you to all the panelists for your thoughtful comments. Thank you very much. Over to you, Igor.
Thank you very much, Glenda, and thank you very much to all of you. Yes, and I think we still have a few more minutes, Glenda, so we don't have to rush that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought
we can still stay.
I
And we
looked
can
at 13:50. I thought it was the end.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I hated myself.
So we have, I would just, no, this was wonderful. Thank you very much to all of you for your contributions. And I think there have been some interesting chat contributions as well. Maybe that's something that we can still raise as a possibility for participants to reflect on. And I think particularly from Najma, I think she's based at the Wits University in South Africa, and she's talking about the operational realities of the university sector. So in some ways, overburdened faculty, the constant need to innovate, and therefore like engaging with open education, if it is not in some form, in some shape or form rewarded or incentivized, is a bit difficult. Then there's funding challenges as well. And so we have been talking about a little bit in the chat about the sort of the new promotion mechanisms and how they should be adapted or changed accordingly to incentivize open education practices. And maybe this is something to reflect on, maybe briefly from anyone here on this amongst the attendees. We also have Lilia here, who is joining from University of Sousse. Hello, Lilia, in Tunisia. Well, currently in France.
Hi, Lilia.
Thank you very much, Igor and Glenda,
Yeah.
for associating me to this very nice event. And I'm really hearing very nice contribution from colleagues from many countries, and it's very insightful and a lot of lessons.
Excellent. Yeah. But we are aware of this. These are the kind of operational realities of the university sector, of the higher education sector as well. And it seems, Lydia, you would like to reflect on this?
Yes, exactly. In Tunisia, we are active since many years on open education, in particular in my university, in Sousse University, many initiatives, many projects, in particular national and international projects have been conducted. But I think that the same problems are actually observed in many countries. It's lack of awareness. This is despite the fact that we have conducted a lot of training of trainers and so on, but still, I think there is a huge need of a legal framework that will, let's to say, give the general context or general framework of putting in place this open education initiatives. This is very important, in my opinion. Teachers need to find or to observe the direct benefit of having these open education practices. It should be related to research. It should be connected to innovation. It should be connected to their progress in their career. This is very important. Otherwise, it will be on voluntary basis, and it will never achieve the objectives that we have in mind related to open education. For the students also, it could be related to entrepreneurship initiative, to some more commitment in the university life. So every actor should have a kind of connection between the objectives of open education and the way that he is doing a kind of evolution in his career, in his learning path, in his administrative path, and so on. This is, in my opinion, very important, and I think if we can join our efforts to have a kind of some kind of general picture, the way that we can propose this framework to our countries. It could be contextualized in each country, but it could be, I think we have the same issue, the same problems facing and together we can maybe define some kind of generic solution that could be implemented. Thank you, Igor.
Thank you very much, Lilia. This is wonderful, a wonderful summary, and yes, definitely agree about the coordinated approach and learning from what other countries are doing specifically as well. And I think there are numerous organizations here that have been trying to do something and affect change at the national level from a policy perspective, from a regulatory framework perspective, and having that kind of exchange and sharing of knowledge and information about what is working, what is not working, and why is perhaps focus of the follow-up session. Yeah.
In the next, I think will be some kind of session where I can share with you some spotlights about the way that we have conducted some projects. If we have some time.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Lilia, and certainly this is something that we would probably want to continue doing going forward, because there seems to be some themes emerging here throughout this conversation that deserve some more attention going forward. And so perhaps, Glenda, as you were referring to maybe doing something next year, perhaps this would be also one of those kind of like specifically themed sessions on specific topics within specific regions that require attention as well. And Salah Abdo is from the Open University of Sudan also, and she's articulating also a challenge here about raising awareness about OER and open education practices, which is also something that it's constant, right? This is something that we need to do constantly, like because there are constantly new entrants to the field. We heard that from the other fields or from the other tours as well. There are changes in the university administrations, in the governmental leadership. There are new sets of people that you need to convince all over again. There are sort of all the sets of advocacy messages that used to work maybe like 10 years ago are no longer working. They need to be adapted to take new developments into account. So there's lots of things that we need to talk about here in terms of coordinated approach. There you go. And there is a request for more information from Lilia. So Lilia, perhaps when we get to the lightning talks section, then perhaps you can talk a little bit more about this. Najma, I hope that it works for you. But also, I will also encourage you all to, so this is also on behalf of Glenda, to continue these kinds of conversations post the Africa tour. We are also going to communicate with all of you and just to encourage you also to get to specific spaces like OEG Connect, where you can continue conversations and get in touch with each other. But I think that we can conclude the panel for now. So I'm going to hand over to Glenda. Thank you very much to all of you for your contributions. Glenda, you can formally close again. Sorry, I kind of reopened after you formally close again. But so now it's over to you. You have the final word.
Okay. Okay. Just to say thank you again to everyone. My timing was slightly off. I was working on 40 minutes. Thank you very much to everyone. And yeah, I think I really want to encourage you to go onto the Padlet and do the other activities. I think it would be very interesting to see, what countries we're actually representing in our multi-regional approach, and which countries we need to look towards as other places where we need to do advocacy work, and how we can strengthen these bonds, and how we can collaborate together in future. So thank you very much once again to everyone. And yes, over to Igor for some more interesting sessions, short snapshot sessions. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Glenda.
Thank you, panelists.
Thank you to the panelists as well. Thank you, Monge, Balira, and everybody else who has been contributing, Kem and others. We are going to, so I think I'm going to start sharing the slides again. And there is one thing that I've realized as we were going through this session is that I kind of skimmed through a couple of things on the way to the panel. And this is something that I would like to come back to now briefly. And my colleague Ayla has been sharing the links directly in the chat window during the panel discussion. But yes, we have got some interesting activities that you can all engage in during these sessions. One of those is obviously let us know where you're coming from during these sessions, which is called what we call put open education on the map. So here, if you scan the QR code, if you don't have a phone, perhaps I can just ask one of my colleagues to drop a direct link to the platform into the chat window. You can just basically drop a pin on the map, on the world map of where you are, and then we'll consolidate all of this, obviously, towards the end of the tours, but you can already see continuously where people are coming from. So that's a really interesting, engaging activity, and helps us to see where you're coming from as participants. Also, what normally happens when you are traveling around the world, you buy postcards and you send postcards. Yeah, well, it doesn't happen all that frequently nowadays, but there are still people who buy postcards and send them. I'm one of them. So I'm just old timers, I would guess. But anyway, so we have got electronic postcards. And so if you scan this particular QR code, you will be able to create an electronic postcard and share it with the community. And we have had some wonderful hellos from the different participants in the different tours already. So we encourage you to do this kind of fun activity as well. Most importantly, as we are traveling through through the different regions of the world, and as you as tourists, when you are traveling sometimes, like what you do, like you take photos of interesting landmarks, buildings, whatever it may be, nature, and cultural assets. And so in this particular case, we would like you to share with us some landmarks of interesting open education initiatives in different regions as participants, as presenters. We have a short survey instrument that we have developed. Again, there is a direct link there, or you can scan your QR code. And if you are aware of any interesting OER initiatives, projects, events that are taking place over the upcoming months, please let us know and capture those in the short survey instrument. And towards the end of the tour and towards the end of this year, we will then publish like a more comprehensive report of the entire tour, plus all of these landmarks that have been shared during the Open Education Global Tours in different regions. Yeah. So that's that. Thank you very much. And we are now moving to the snapshot talks. And if you have any questions and if you're looking for specific links, please ask in the chat window. My colleagues will be able to assist you. In this specific, the second half of this particular segment, we have got 5 presentations, which are lightning talks. So these are 5 minutes long. And here we have got Kem again from AFLIA, and then we have got Monge Tlaka again from OER Africa. We have got Agava Stanislaus from Kenya, and then we have got Lauren Fox from the Zenex Foundation in South Africa, and then we have got Lilia Sheniti from the University of Sousse in Tunisia. And the first presenter here is going to be Kem from AFLIA again, who is normally based in Nigeria, but currently is based in the UK. So over to you, Kem.
Thank you very much for that again. And learning starts from early literacy development. It's quite easy to say, oh, open education resources, like I've said, should be for higher education, mostly for higher education, because that's where people that are visible, more visible are. That's where the academics are. That's where the great names are. But we've come to realize that actually learning starts from even before children leave home. And for us in Africa, like I said, where we have the highest number of out-of-school children, it is very critical that we take note that children can learn in literacy-rich environments like libraries, public and community libraries, and such places will help them to learn. But the question has always been, I mean, they can read stories, right? In what language? In English, when most of them speak their mother tongues, they speak in their local languages. So how do they learn? How do we begin to share stories in English? You tell them about Cinderella. Oh, okay, that sounds good. You tell them about snow. Where have they seen the snow? So we now understood that irrespective of the abundance of English storybooks in our libraries, we needed to bring books to children that they can recognize themselves in. And that is what we have been doing in AFLIA in collaboration with NBA. And I saw that Christy is now in another organization, but Christy really helped us then when we were starting with this, when she was in a MBA, and we did a course, and the course is still ongoing. We've run 4 cohorts, and out of that, we've been able to teach librarians and non-librarians that are library staff in public and community libraries in different countries in Africa, because you go to some libraries in communities, there's no librarian there, but there's somebody that works there. So we said, oh, let's not discriminate and say, oh, because you don't have a degree in library science, that we can't teach you. So we worked with all of them, promoted the use of open licenses, and for many of them, I can tell you, at least 95% of them, it was the first time that they heard of such. It was like, hey, is it possible? Until we now took them to the Story Weaver site, where we were able to create a digital library of stories in African languages that can be accessed on offline, that parents are being encouraged to please download these stories for those that have internet-enabled devices. Some do not have, many do not have in rural communities. And when they come to libraries, we use the devices. Sometimes it's even just a phone to read these stories to children in their mother tongues, so that whenever they start school, if they can start school, they'll be able to hear or at least gain ideas, have ideas about concepts, concepts about, and the stories that we have been translating. We try to translate stories on STEM, so that when they hear about Internet of Things, they won't say which one is that, but we try to translate them into our local languages with phrases, because those words don't exist. They don't exist in any African language, robotics and so on. But we had to find phrases that will explain to children, this is this, that is that. And we believe that that is a critical step towards ensuring that they don't fall through the cracks down the line. They don't drop off, at least they don't drop off because they don't understand what is being taught in class, so to speak, and that they begin to appreciate the power of books. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kem, and thank you for that important reminder about open education being focused not only on higher education, but also in the early literacy development, right? Primary and secondary education as well. So thank you very much for all this important work that you are doing. I think that my colleagues have also shared some interesting links in the chat window for where you can ask more questions and engage with Kem also about this specific initiative. We are going to continue straight ahead to OER Africa again, which is represented by Tlaka here again, and Monge. Let me know if you would like to focus on the CPD framework briefly, or if you want me to stick over, or if you want me to move over to the OER Sustainability Hub immediately. Yeah.
Thanks, Igor. So just briefly, just to visually show kind of what the framework for academics look like. So for those that joined in a little bit late, I touched on the work that we're doing around continuous professional development. This is focusing on empowering academics and librarians through a structured professional development process. We have developed this framework that focuses on about 11 domains. So these are all the competencies that as an academic one should have at a higher education institution. So we have started just on the colored ones here: course design, materials development, facilitating learning and effective assessment and feedback. And we will be populating the other sections as we continue with this particular work. And how you use the framework, as I've indicated, if there is a specific area where you need guidance, or you need templates, or you need tools, or you need to develop other materials to support your academics, you can search, or you can browse through this particular diagram on the oerafrica.org website. So it's kept quite flexible. It's not restricting you in terms of level or the areas that you're focusing on. We've curated a set of resources that we hope would be useful as we build capacity for of academics and librarians. If you go to the next slide.
Before I go there, Monge, sorry, one question out of interest.
No problem.
If I remember this correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but these competencies that you have identified on this wheel, if I remember correctly, you have also mapped openly licensed content against those competencies, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, all right. So that's also relevant for the audience members to know about, that you will be able to identify openly licensed resources against these core sets of competencies.
Yeah. So maybe just to add there is that for each, actually I think it probably for 95% of the resources that are there, we provide specific guidance on how you can use that resource. So if you are an academic, you don't need to adapt it. You can just use the resource as is. But if you're training others, or you'd like to build, say for example, Nkem is building a capacity building intervention, we give an example, then she can adapt that resource to then train other librarians or offer it in a different context.
Okay, thank you very much, Monge. Over to you.
Right. So for the OER Sustainability Hub, so I'll share the link to this as we're finalizing the website. So this is work that we've done over the last 20 years. We are very appreciative of the Hewlett Foundation for providing us with the grant, the work that we've been doing with OER Africa, and engaging with other ministries. So the idea of the Sustainability Hub is to ensure that the initiatives that we are working on set up in a structured way, in a sustainable way, and we are looking at the ecosystem, but not in silos. So what we're doing on the platform, which is slightly different to just a repository, this site is meant for government agencies or ministries where they're looking at implementing. Let's take an example, say in Ghana, they want to develop a UNESCO ICT CFT framework. They're looking at resources to populate around it. So instead of just going on and just say, let's set this one up, but you're thinking about, as the ministry, what else would you need on your platform? So we're covering a number of areas. So we have a foundation, what I'll call a layer or a sub area, and that covers things around governance, financing, ICT infrastructure, legislation, and policy. I saw on the comments that there were comments around how expensive it is for academics to actually, register on courses or work on creating OERs, that it requires funding. But we believe the foundation layer is saying this applies to all the initiatives you'd work on. Once you can set all of this up and you set it up in an effective way, then it kind of builds you up to work on other components. The next one is the organization. So here we're looking at the people, the structure, the project management, the procurement. Because if you do not have, for example, the knowledge to do procurement correctly, I've worked in IT for many years, so I always interpret the work of an IT person to that of an academic. So procurement could be one of those, but we're providing it in simple terms to say, if you are if you need procurement, these are the things you need to do: capacity building, project management, etc. Then what are the supporting processes that you need to have in place to enable the work that you're doing to ensure that it is effective? So how do you look at your quality assurance? What change management processes need to be in place to get people along? Because you can't just leave people behind, or you can't expect people to adopt new systems without you taking the time to work through the change management, to work through the stakeholder engagement, and more importantly, to monitor what you're doing. Is it working? What's working? What's not? Are we hitting the targets that we've set for ourselves? Then when we look at the core implementation, because here we are focusing on OERs, as in the platform itself, the content and the delivery of learning that goes into if you're setting up an LMS, guidance is provided around those particular areas. And then lastly, talking to the issue of collaborating and sharing, we encouraging those that have set up, worked in any of these areas, or have had challenges, or they've written a report on some of the great opportunities and successes, is then to share that work. So that, just promoting knowledge sharing, so that we're not repeating similar mistakes. We can learn from others, we can collaborate. And at the back of this, we then have a self-assessment that a ministry, a university can work on to self-assess. Is not punitive, but is to give you guidance. You might find that in your environment, your foundation layer is actually brilliant, but you're lacking in the core implementation. So it will give you a bit of a scoring, and it will then direct you to resources. This space is a free to use space, all OERs uploaded. It is a logged in system, so that you can complete that assessment as and when you need it, but everything that's on that platform is free for use, and we welcome feedback on this approach, whether it works, where are the gaps, is this something that is actually feasible in a ministry, in an institution, at a schooling level, or it needs some tweaks, but it's built on years of experience, and we're very excited to be launching the space quite soon. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Monge, and thank you for sharing this important work. As you can already see, this is going to be a really important resource that is going to be seeing the light of the day soon. And it really is the outcome of, as Monge has already mentioned, nearly 2 decades of the leadership in this space, specifically on the continent. And so that's one of the reasons why they also have OER Africa has been nominated for the Open Education Awards for Excellence. And I think that we are linking to your nomination also in the chat window. And please, if you want to see, if you are a winner of the award, please come on Friday when the winners will be announced at 7 p.m. in the evening, Central European time, which is currently also a South African Standard Time. Thank you very much, Monge. Much appreciated. Moving over to our colleague here from Kenya on the east coast of Africa, Agava Stanislaus. Agava, would you please take over from your presentation?
Okay, thank you so much, Igor. As I had introduced myself, my name is Agava Stanislaus. Currently, I won an award from the global, from GOGIAN, the Global Graduate Network. And this particularly is meant to try and bring together the graduate, especially doctorate students in Kenya, and create a network for them sharing their research and create mentorship and so forth. And therefore, they are starting some hubs within in different continents. And so I managed to win one of them. So we created a hub that we call the Kenya Open Education Knowledge Exchange, KOEC Hub in Kenya, which is now running, and we started our activities last week. So, and where is this anchored? Which I go now to the second slide. This is anchored under the Kenya Library Services Consortium. The Kenya Library Services Consortium, its main activity is to provide affordable resources for Kenyan institutions, particularly institutions of higher learning, universities, colleges, and so forth. And one of its core mandate is to ensure that we have open resources that members have access to. Particularly, we try to get this through the AFOL. And therefore, this is where I've anchored my presentation and indicate to you that the KOEC, CLISC, and GoGN are all converging towards open education resources. So in this particular image here, which is a framework for change, which indicates towards decolonizing knowledge, especially in Africa, and not just in Africa, but the global South, whereby sharing and access to knowledge is what we are looking for and what we are determined to look for. So as OER, the tangible tools for decolonization in this particular aspect, they are teaching, learning, and research materials that reside in the public domain for people to be in a position to access resources. One of the key areas in this particular, how do they decolonize information and why do we advocate for it? They change hegemony, whereby they allow the creation and sharing of locally relevant curricula, stories, case studies, particularly from our own context, rather than us just relying on the Western textbooks and perspectives of looking at issues, the way or how we publish, where we publish. Somebody talked about the infrastructure here and even the personnel. They try to democratize creation, whereby they empower African academics, teachers, and students to produce a knowledge, not just for consumers of it, and reduce cost barriers that exist in this context. And therefore, we keep on looking towards this. So how does KOEC now come in to give a boost to this? As I indicated, this is a global, or this is a regional hub for graduate students. And in this case, the role is to provide infrastructure for access by pooling resources together, though through the Kenya Library Services. But KOEC, in this case, fosters collaboration and advocacy among these students or this particular group of researchers. Its aim is to build community of practice for open education researchers, providing training, setting standards, and championing open access policies or open education policies. The way it contributes towards decolonization is that it ensures OER movement is not isolated, but is coordinated, African-led, as an African-led effort to build local capacity and ensure sustainability in preventing a new form of dependency on external saviors of information, as we may call it. But that's not what we want. We want a whole hegemony of that brings together the African researchers who are contributing, yes, knowledge, but also access to that particular knowledge is made as seamless as possible, because that's one of the challenges. That is, you are able to publish in an international journal, but you, even yourself as an author, you have no access to that particular, even the manuscript that has been approved for purposes of using it in future. The Kenya Library Services, in this particular case, tries to reduce dependency on individual costly subscriptions, giving collective of African institutions the power to access and curate global knowledge on their own terms. So in this case, the movement, as we start off here, our main aim is that GoGN or KOEC, as we may call it at this particular time, is not just going to be a movement here in Kenya, but we would like to expand it to the continent as much as we can with the support of GoGN, which to me, GoGN is allowing African scholars to contribute their research on OER and decolonization. So in this case, as we move forward, our main aim should not just be looking at we accessing the open education resource, but also contributing towards that. We have so many stories, we have so many beautiful case studies in this case, and I think moving forward, we'll be in a position to claim this and say we are able to access, but we are also in a position to contribute to the global knowledge, hence decolonizing knowledge. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Gawa. This was a wonderful presentation, and thank you for leading this regional hub of GoGN as well. And we're looking forward to hearing how that continues to develop. And please share some maybe more information in the chat window if you can, if people have more questions, how they can participate. Perhaps you have issued a call, you want to expand beyond Kenya, be this like a hub for Africa as well. We are aware that this is fairly new initiative, and it's going to continue developing over the next few months. But if people want to stay updated with the latest developments, perhaps share your contact details or where they can find out more information, that would be helpful, please.
Thank you. Welcome.
And just for some of those here who are not familiar with actually Global OER Graduate Network, it's a specific network that was set up to support researchers, primarily PhD researchers working on topics in open education, open educational resources, and the like. And Agawa is one of the graduates, and Glenda is one of the graduates from the network. I'm soon to be graduating from the network as well next month when I'm actually supposed to defend my thesis. So many people in our field actually went through the network, and it's a wonderful supportive mechanism. And the regional hub for Africa that Agawas is advancing, it's going to be a wonderful addition to it. And there is also another one for the Latin American region. And if you want to find out more about that specific hub of GoGN, we welcome you to participate tomorrow in the Latin American tour of the OEGlobal Tour, where you're going to hear more about that specific hub. Thank you very much. I'm going to now ask our colleague Lauren Fogg from Zenex Foundation to talk about the activities of the Zenex Foundation in South Africa.
Thank you really very much, Igor, and thank you to Monge and the Neil Butcher Associates for inviting me to share the Ulwazi Lwetu children's literacy books with you and your community. So I think that the Ulwazi Lwetu literacy program is probably a good case study of a model of development of open education resources in an area of need. And I mean, just to say that I work for an organization called Scenic Foundation, and we're a donor and we fund education. Our focus areas are literacy and maths. And in fact, we are celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. And preparing this gave me an opportunity to think about where we've come from. And, I think Nkem gave a beautiful introduction around the, literacy and the need for literacy. And, for the first 20 years, Zenex has been working in supporting literacy projects. But we know, and we're at a point where many children, not just in South Africa, but globally, are really struggling to read and read for meaning. And that is definitely the case in South Africa. And so as an evidence-based organization, a lot of our research and our evaluations was finding that one of the reasons was that many of our children did not have access to reading books, to reading materials, and particularly in the African languages. And we found that, because a lot of publishing works on supply and demand, if you do not encourage African language reading or reading in African languages, then it doesn't create a demand for people to produce African language readers. And so that sort of caused a dearth, and then that obviously ricocheted into children only having access to English books. And I think that, the primacy of English led to, a publishing industry that was very Anglophonic, because that's where the profits were. So what we then did is, way back in 2019, we then said, well, how do we solve this problem? What is the problem we want to solve? And I think the first thing was that we wanted to address the scarcity and the critical need of high quality African language children reading materials, because it's a key lever of teaching and learning. The second thing that we wanted to do was we knew that we wanted to make them affordable. So Monge spoke a lot about sustainability, about looking in the long term. And I think that for us, we were saying, if we are wanting to develop children's readers and we want to make them available, then we have to make them affordable. And how do we do that? And I think that developing resources as open education resources was a no-brainer. It was like, how do we make them freely available to not just parents, but to schools? And just to say that the problem that we were trying to solve is not just to develop ordinary readers, but we wanted to develop readers that could go into schools, that teachers could use to teach reading and comprehension. And I think that that's a very important distinction I want to make here, is that we also wanted to think about this notion of getting a book onto every desk in every school, in every school in South Africa. So, and then I'll come back to the affordability issue, because that is where our partnership with Neil Butcher and Associates and the Early Learning Resource Network came in. The fourth A is that we also wanted to develop appropriately graded readers, so that teachers could then develop good quality, high readers that were aligned with the curriculum of the country. We also want to develop readers that affirmed the culture of children, and so that they could see themselves, they could relate to these books, and that the books were sensitive to their multilingual context and their multiple experiences. In addition, we also wanted to ensure that these resources were developed in partnership. So we then partnered with 4 literacy organizations who then developed these indigenous books in all the 9 African languages, and ensured that they were leveled and written that followed the orthography, the logic, the structure of each of the 9 African languages, and that it wasn't just this notion of translating from the English, but that it was written by mother tongue speakers, so that it made sense to the children. And then the other thing was abundance. We didn't just want to produce 7 books. In the end, 3 years later, we've now developed 1,450 children's books for use for the children in South Africa that are now accessible to schools. So let me come back to the issue of affordability and accessibility. So our partnership with Monge and her colleagues was that we really wanted to think through very deeply about this notion of affordability and accessibility. And so we used their portal, the ELRN portal, in order to upload and make available our books so that it became a sustainable repository. It also could store the books, and it could distribute, and we can use the portal to ensure that school teachers could display them on data projectors so that they could read them as part of their shared reading or their read aloud classes, but also that they could print them when they had access to a budget. So the only cost here is data to access them online, and secondly to print them. And just to say that, and so all of the books that are on the UNOE, and I'm putting the URL in on the chat so that you can go and have a look, is that all of them are print ready. So you can download collections, you can download one or whatever, and you can send them to a printer. What we also did to make it more accessible to the state and to the education system is we developed derivatives. So there are big books, there are worksheets, you can print them as anthologies, and so on. So what we were trying to do was to make these books accessible to the state. And we know that many governments are talking about, you know, austerity budgets or constrained budgets. And so we were trying to really think about what is the problem. And so so in the conceptualization and in the design, we then were thinking about what is important for embedding. And I think that's what we were trying to do. And the value that's underpinning this, which resonates so much with what all of you and your open education community is talking about, is this notion of a public good, that in order to, you know, because so much is privatized, so much one has to spend. And so that's what I love about your community, is that you are encouraging this notion of really making resources open and accessible. So I think that just the two last things I want to say is that, you know, advocacy in this area is critical. And I feel that so much of what we forget about open education resources is about talking about it, is about sharing with people the value, why it's so important. And then the second thing is that, you know, just to say that now when we've launched, etc., at least 6 out of 9 of the government departments have now actually printed Ulwazi. So for us, it just proves that it's a really useful idea. And the last point I want to make is that, you know, I'm thinking now of what's happening in Palestine and the genocide, and how a whole state's memory is being decimated, and how open education platforms are so critical in times of crisis and oppression in this way. And so, you know, that's what it's there. You know, OER provides memory making, it offers continued learning, and it makes it affordable and accessible. On that note, thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Your passion is coming across very clearly as you speak. Thank you for this really important work that you have been doing in South Africa. I think that we are all learning as you speak, and I think this is something that we are going to be really in touch with you about going forward too. And yes, it's really important. Yeah, this is where the open education is really making a difference in the everyday lives of people, of learners, and being able to demonstrate it is really important. And it's clear also, like it was clear also from one of our speakers yesterday from Palestine, was also speaking about the importance of open education. Basically, what do you do, right, when your education system is destroyed, pretty much as an infrastructure? So use open education to rebuild. Yeah, and this is the important message that comes across with open education. Yeah. So thank you very much for sharing this important initiative, and please do share all of those links in the chat window as well. And we are going to continue highlighting this important work that you do, and hopefully coordinating with you as well and Zenex. And thank you also to MBA representatives for this important partnership. And now I know that we are running a little bit late, so thank you everyone for being around for a few more minutes. And we are having one additional speaker here before we close the session, and that's Dr. Lilia Sheniti. who is joining us here again from the University of Sousse in Tunisia. And thank you, Lilia, for making yourself available while you are still touring France for a conference.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much, Igor and Glenda, for associating me to this event. I'm currently in France, and I will have a train in a few minutes, so I will try to present quickly what we have been conducting related to open education in Sousse University. So, if you can, yes, thank you, Igor. So, first of all, Sousse University is one of the 13th university in Tunisia. We are strongly engaged in promotion of open education as part of our digital transformation strategy and our objectives related to digital education. We had the chance that we had a very huge project related to quality of education supported by the World Bank. And as part of this project, there is a huge part related to pedagogical innovation, and we have included some trainings related to digital and open education and quality learning. We have been also involved in many national and international projects related to digital and open education, in particular Erasmus projects funded by the European Commission, but also by the Francophone University Agency, where we have been working mainly for fostering openness and innovation in education. What we have, I think, one of the best things that we have put in place in Sousse is that we have put in place a certificate for 1 year for teacher that they have 6 modules, and then they have a kind of defense, or they have to write a paper. But one part, the huge part of this certificate is on open education. The certificate is related to digital and innovative learning. We are proud that we have a pedagogical innovation unit in this in my university. I'm coordinator of this unit, and it is composed of teachers and students to promote open and digital education and innovative approaches for learning and teaching. And we have established the first learning lab in Tunisia as part of a network of learning labs in the MENA region, supported by the Swiss Cooperation and University of Geneva. And this learning lab is for thinking about new ways of teaching using innovative approaches and also open educational resources. And many initiatives in this framework have been conducted. Next slide, please, Igor. Now, based on all this, what we have done is, first of all, this is a very nice thing that we have. We are proud of it, that we started making a lot of capacity building actions related to open education. But in particular, the most famous action that we had is that we have a kind of certificate composed of SPOOC, small private online courses. This is offered as a mandatory module for PhD students in the STEM school, in the STEM doctoral school, but also it's on voluntary basis to be in this course for the new recruited teacher. So in that way, we have actually raised awareness related to open education for the new recruited teacher, but also for the future teacher, because the PhD students will be future teachers. Another thing is also we are currently having a very nice projects related to gamification and AI in education, and we are conducting many training of trainers, but all resources that we are developing with the teachers are on open licenses and based on open licenses and open resources. We are currently preparing an open education charter aligned with the UNESCO OER recommendation. This is an ongoing work. Also, we have been very active in inclusive open learning. One of the best projects, two projects that would like to share. First of all, we have worked on training of trainer and training of the students how to design and to use open accessible resources. And this was actually the starting point was an Erasmus project, but after the Erasmus project, it becomes a SPOOC in our one of the SPOOCs that I have mentioned before for training of trainer and training of the students. The second thing, which is also a very nice project, we have worked on how to integrate, to make the linkage between open education and sustainability and SDGs. And we took as an example the SDG 5, and we have developed a spoke on gender in digital and open education together with my colleague in Alexandria University. And this was actually a nice project that we got an award for the best innovative project on 2023 by the Francophone agency. It was a kind of competition, and we were proud of it. And still, we are still working on another framework on this book, which will be more, which will be opened for a huger community. And we are proud that we are a part of the UNESCO UNITWIN network that will enable us to share our practices, but also to collaborate with colleagues to co-develop and maybe put in place some training of trainers. All these initiatives are good, but we need more collaboration. Why? Because these are, as I said before, these initiatives need a kind of, in my country at least, a legal framework to support open education policy, to support teacher and learner and governance of the university to be engaged in this process. This is very important in my opinion. Second thing is that we need also to put all our efforts to show other benefits of open education. My colleague has mentioned how could be open education used for continuous learning. In particular, in Palestine, we have, together with some teacher from the MENA region, we have delivered some courses online based on open resources for some universities. This is also a very, in my opinion, very huge benefit of open education, in particular in some situation where there is need for continuous learning and for continuing the education. This is very, very important. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share our thoughts about open education, our initiatives. We are open to collaboration, and again, I think together we can really advance more the movement related to open education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lilia. That's really impressive array of activities that you have just described. So congratulations to you and your colleagues, and also on these awards, because it's very much deserved. But certainly we hear your plea for collaboration, which is really important. So we'll definitely be in touch. And again, as I said, like, we are going to coordinate the participants and everybody else who was throughout the tours in follow-up actions, and we can see how we can initiate that kind of mechanisms for collaborations.
Thank you very much.
Which is one of our main roles. So thank you very much, Lilia. And if you need to go, because we don't want you to miss your train, then feel free to go. But thank you very much for all your contributions. Okay. And so we are running a little bit late, but we are just going to close very briefly with this session. So we just want to again thank everybody for your participation today, the panelists, the presenters, the attendees. In terms of like what's next, just please mark it that tomorrow there are two different tours. There is one in Latin America and one in North America. And then on Friday, as we have already mentioned, they are going to have a big reveal of the winners of this year's Open Education Awards for Excellence. Again, that's just to save the date for the Open Education Awards for Excellence. Again, save the date for Open Education Week, which is also something that we do as OEGlobal. So Open Education Week 2026 is going to be March 2 to 6, 2026, and we are going to issue the call for participation in the next couple of months or so. We also do Open Education Global Conference. Typically, this happens on a yearly basis. Next year is going to happen from October 7 to 9, 2026, and it's going to be both in person and online, or in a hybrid format. It's going to be in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it's going to be co-organized together with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the Massachusetts OER Advisory Council. MIT has been de facto the incubator of this movement. It's going to be the 25-year anniversary of OpenCourseware. So we really do invite all of you to participate. We are going to issue the call for papers or proposals in early spring or in January, February timeframe. And again, it's going to be possible to participate in person and also in a hybrid format. And now with that, thank you very much, everyone. It was wonderful to.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was wonderful to be with you all here, and be well. I don't know if Glenda, you would like to say any concluding remarks, perhaps? No? All good?
No, just thank you very much. It was wonderful. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Be well, and we are going to share the recordings and different assets from this session post OEGlobal Tour. Thank you. Be well.
Thank you. Thank you too.
Mhm.